saying or keeping that debate structure, and you're getting there. It's just certainly needs a bit of time to get into the flow and into the habit of that way of talking if you're not used to it. Regarding the session, Kejok and I led the early session today, the session 3. And it was similar to what Marike said. We focused a lot on the counting debate, which went pretty well, I think. We stick to being one group, and we adhered to the script for most of the part of the session. And in the end, we tried to go a bit what I call freestyle. We tried to not stick to the script, but have a challenger come up with questions on their own to see how that works and how that feels like. And to afterwards, when some people also stick around and went into pairs and had more intense debate sessions, which I think worked out fine. But that's pretty much it. So I think altogether we focused more on the counting debate and have now a good chance to get more into the logic debate.
Awesome. So glad to hear that people are giving it a go. And as Marika said, we need to cultivate this skill. It is a new way of speaking and thinking. And it requires a certain degree of discipline because it is a structured formal language. So while you're trying to rack your brains for good reasons and trying to find some way to overturn your opponent's thesis or whatever view that they've accepted, you at the same time need to hold in mind, okay, and now how do I phrase this? So you have multiple multitasking, cognitive multitasking going on there. So that's one of the reasons it just takes some time to get used to. And I would say, just from my experience with Tibetan debate, and I believe some of the students here also have done debate in Tibetan before, at least one or two. There's this sort of sing-songy quality, like a lilt almost, like as if you're not just speaking, but almost there's a rhythm, like not quite singing, but there's some kind of song quality to the way that the language is just the way it comes out in the Tibetan. If you watched some of the videos, I don't know how well you could actually hear the voices of the people because there is a lot of noise, but some of the example debate videos of the Tibetans debating, you can hear this. And I'll just give an example. So just the way you would state a simple thing about, say, colors being, I'll just say it in Tibetan, doesn't matter what it means, but you would say, Marbokado Chuchan, Tawekado Yimbartao, Tawekado Yimbartao, Ngozak Armoshi Kanu Yimbichir. It's got this sort of rhythm, and you like stretch the syllables out. My point just being that the language as it has been developed and is practiced in the Tibetan language, the debate language in the Tibetan language, has allowed for this sort of natural, pleasing quality to the debate, to the tone of the debate. And that's something that perhaps could be worked on in the English. And maybe if there's people, some of the students here who have a more musical bent, maybe that's something you could think about, just at least keep in the back of your mind. And I don't know, it's possible something a little more rhythmic could evolve, um, rather than being a little bit stilted, just for the sake of, again, fluidity and fun when you're actually doing it. We want to keep it fun. It feels like we're just dredging through some kind of bizarre language that it's like, if it's got some hard quality to it, it won't be as fun, right? Okay, so then how do we keep our debates moving forward? How do we actually move from a counting debate into a logic debate? So that's what we're going to be talking about today, and also just go over a couple things that were left from yesterday. And then just a couple points I wanted to bring up from yesterday's class about the some of the questions that came up. Just another little point that the question from Rimby about definitions and suitable as form being the definition of form and whether you could have a different one. So I never have seen anywhere it suggested that the definition of form is an extremely hidden phenomenon that only like a Buddha would be able to know or some extremely wise person. So that I would be happy to see a source that says suggests that and see why like what it's thinking. But I've never seen that, and it seems like that wouldn't make much sense because we have there in the text there are reasons to prove that something is the definition of some definiendum, right? Some definition is is the definition of some definiendum. There are reasons for that. So anything that has a reason, which is not just reference to some scriptural authority, some authority of a person with greater knowledge. If it has a real reason, then that means it's not extremely hidden, but a slightly hidden phenomenon. So that's one point. And I also want to mention that another way we could see how it's not that solid is that the different textbooks from the different colleges, um, not only across the Tibetan Buddhist traditions, even within the Gelugpa itself, also do posit different definitions for a variety of things. Form itself, I don't recall ever seeing a different definition than this one we could translate as suitable as form. But many other really basic things, like consciousness, for instance, that even that has different definitions in different textbooks. Marika, would you like to say something? Add something?
Well, yeah, I just wanted to point out that Andrew is raising his hand, so shall we take his question right now? I think he's already moving towards the stage.
Yeah, come on up.
Thank you for your very swift observation about it. I appreciate you taking the question. I just wanted to add a little note about the form, if I may, because it is Jitchin Drakpa Gyaltsen that does make that claim. And then it's later on extended by Gorampa in his Middle Way Between Extremities, where their argument is that enlightened perception is the primal quality of the Buddha. In the sense of, I mean, there's some debates later on between Gorampa and Jerenposhe, which I'm sure you're more familiar with than I am. But as far as the late Sakya position on this view, it's that is what allows the Buddha to not reify conventions, as even Chandrakirti is saying that even bodhisattvas up to the eighth bhumi unintentionally reify conventions because they still experience very subtle forms of self-grasping. So insofar as we are looking at a definition of form in relation to perhaps what the Buddha can see, it must be towards this notion that the qualities of the perception of the Buddha allows him to perceive all forms as they are without the kind of samsaric alteration which makes unenlightened sentient beings reify conventions and self-grasping, if that helps at all.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, okay. I can't really speak to that. I haven't read that work, but it would be good to check it out in the future. And that has a certain sense to it, right? So that's again the point of debating, or not the point of it, but the process of it, right? You have one person who has a certain perspective, and then another person has a different one, and you work through it, see which one makes the most sense. Okay, so do we have a question in the chat box, or just okay? Yes. Okay, those are comments. So then, just a reminder, we do have those videos that I hope you're getting the chance to watch with our guest speakers that are broken up into by topic with all the speakers giving their comments on a certain topic. So if you have questions to those speakers about things that they say in the videos, then you're welcome to send those in as well, and we can we can get them to the guest speakers and get an answer for you from them. Okay, so today let's go back to our three-part syllogism. And I do want to just point out a few of the course materials that I want to make sure everyone has. So I'm going to do a screen share because we have a few new materials that have been put up and just want to make sure everyone knows about them. So this here is just one sheet PDF that has all of the, the basic form of the debate with the terms that we use to create a question, or a statement of thesis and statement of pervasion, and a three-part syllogism. And it has how to give an information-seeking question, what to say to have someone posit something, and how to answer the 4 types of answers. And then if there's an open-ended question, just to state your answer in whatever open-ended way you'd like. So that's good to just probably keep open somewhere on whatever device you have, or print out and keep it beside you, because you can reference this when you're debating and say, okay, what am I supposed to say here? So, okay, so, and again, these answers, these two come after a thesis statement or statement of pervasion. These two come after a reason. So that is not explicitly written here, but you have to keep that in mind there.
Yeah, and actually I think one helpful signal word to recognize whether you're responding to a thesis or a reason is if the person says because, then most of the time it would be responding to a reason. So then you would give the no pervasion or the reasons not true. And otherwise you're probably responding to a thesis.
Good. So you have to kind of train your ear to listen for those keywords, right? If you hear the word because, then you don't want to say why. If you're trying to deny the reason, you want to think to yourself, am I going to say the reason's not true or no pervasion? Those are your two options, right? If you want to accept it, then accept it, right? But if you're denying it, then you either want to say the reason's not true / prove it, another option, or you want to say no pervasion. So just listen for those key words, right? Take the subject, the color of a white cloud. It follows that it's a primary color. That's all you hear. You don't hear the word because, then you know I either need to say I accept or why. It follows that it's a primary color because it's the color white. Okay, you heard the word because. Now what do I say? The reason's not true or no pervasion. Accepting it is fine, but that means that you now have gone back on your previous denial of the thesis. Okay, check for questions. No questions. I'll just give one last explicit call for questions and see if anyone has them. So if I'm not seeing any hands, we'll keep going. Good. Okay, so there's this document, and now let's see, do we want to go here? I think I'm going to start actually on the last page of this document. So this is now a document titled Day 2, The Flow of Debate. Is that something that people have? Of course, your videos are all off, so I can't tell if you're shaking your heads, but I hope you all found that. So again, we're putting new documents up day by day, so this will be in the Day 2 channel of the Slack forum. If you don't have it yet, you can just get it right now. Debate Winter School 2021, Day 2. So here we cover the meaning of why and the flow of debate. So this just means, like, how do you get your debate moving? What do you have to keep in mind to not just think of a good reason, but think of how to connect your subject, your predicate, and your reason. Essentially, how to connect your reason to both your subject and to your predicate. So I'm actually going to start down at the last of the slide, the last of the pages in this document. So this page has done the top, keeping your debate focused, page 7. So this is something that is a mistake that's so easy to make. People who have been debating for years, including myself, still make it. And that mistake is sort of one way to think about it is getting disconnected from the subject, losing your subject. The Tibetan, when we say it in Tibetan, the literal translation would be to say that the subject has become powerless or impotent. But you can just say you've lost the subject. So how do we avoid doing that, and what do I even mean by that? So let's just go down straight to the example so you can see what I mean by it. So this is just one example. Take the subject, the color of a red cloud. It follows it as a primary color because, what's the reason here? So we have a 3-part syllogism. Take the subject. Subject, color of a red cloud. Predicate, it's a primary color. Reason, because red is a primary color. Now, does this seem like there's a flaw in the reason to any of you guys here? I can't really, maybe if someone has, okay, Andrew, cool. Yeah, that's perfect. If you have an idea of why there would be a flaw, just say what you think it is. If you want to come up. Or if that's a question, either way, it's fine. But if you want to just say what you have in mind.
I was just trying to figure out how to minimize the slides. Yeah, I mean, it's just a trivial definition, right? It's not even tautological. I mean, in a less technical sense, it's completely uninformative that red is a primary color because red is a primary color. It's like saying anything is that because it is that and nothing else without any sort of justification. It's like a tree is a tree, a cloud is a cloud because a tree is a tree and a cloud is a cloud. It doesn't really have any explanatory value as far as, yeah.
Okay, well, that could be true, but here actually, what's the subject? The subject isn't red, right? So you're not repeating the exact same statement. The subject here is the color of a red cloud. So those are two different subjects, and that's another thing that we'll get into, how to discern sameness versus difference and the importance of that in debate, Nalanda debate, which is extremely important. But here, the color of a red cloud, proving it as a primary color, well, let me take one step back and just say in general, you're always going to have success proving your thesis if you simply go through the hierarchy of whatever topic you're in. If you have a big umbrella category and smaller categories within that, you can always just give as your reason one of the underlying categories, one of the smaller categories contained within a big one. So if you want to say that red is a primary color, let's just say, keep it simple, the color red follows as a primary color, then you can say, because it is, well, no, keep it the same subject. The color of a red cloud, it follows it as a primary color because it is the color red. What you have is a bigger category, primary color. Within that, the category red. So to prove something's a primary color, saying that it's red does prove that. Because if something is red, it's necessarily a primary color. So you could do that. I mean, here, that's the problem here, though, is that what's happening is you're actually you're not referencing your subject in the reason. That's the simple way to say it. You've just made, maybe this is actually what you were, this is probably related to what you were saying, Andrew. I think I didn't understand it exactly right at first, but right, you're just making another statement. It's just like if you were saying, take the subject, the color of a red cloud, it follows it's a primary color because you know, because I mean the earth is round. You know, you're just making a whole separate statement without connecting it to your subject at all. Are there any questions about what I mean here? Let's go down to the next one and see if it makes sense by looking at the next example. So here is the wrong way to do it, a mistake, where you lose your subject. Now, how do you keep the subject in the equation, in your reason? Take the subject, the color of a red cloud. It follows that it is a primary color because it is the color red. All you have to do is make sure you say the word it, the pronoun it. So that's one key thing. If you keep in mind, whenever you're thinking about what kind of predicate do I want to say, first of all, and then what kind of reason do I want to give to prove that that thesis is true, the subject is indeed the predicate that I'm asserting. All you have to keep in mind to make sure that you don't sort of lose your subject and go off into some other unrelated point or statement, you have to just make sure you use the pronoun it. So take the subject, color, it follows that its form, because it is suitable as form. If you say take the subject color, it follows that its form because, you know, all the things that are visible by the eye must be form. That itself is just a separate statement. It's very well possible it's a true statement, but you haven't actually said anything about the subject. You've lost the subject. It's just like you're saying, because the earth is round, right? Because apes are primates. It's like, okay, who cares? Let's see, we have a comment. Okay, so we have just a question asking, would we answer that, this example that is wrong here, I believe that's what you're referring to, as no pervasion or prove it. Yeah, the first example he says, so no pervasion or prove it. So here what I would actually answer, and it's not one of the formal correct answers because it's not, you know, you're answering it for not a correctly phrased syllogism, but this is sort of one of the hidden answers. It's not on the sheet, but you can just say you've lost the subject. That's one option to point out, because the reason someone would probably make this kind of reason is that they're not aware even, right? That's what's happened. They're just thinking quickly and didn't remember to connect the reason to the subject. So you can just point out you've lost the subject. Or you could say no pervasion. You could say no pervasion. Because it's like, if you say no pervasion, then what does it mean? It means that simply because red is a primary color, it doesn't necessarily follow that X, whatever subject you can posit, is necessarily a primary color. Okay, if there are any questions about that, you can ask them. And until I see a hand go up, I'm going to go up and now move on to the first slide of this, the first page of this document. And this is another important thing to keep in mind, is what do the answers that a defender is saying mean? In other words, if I deny that the color of a red cloud is a primary color, does that mean anything else? Well, yes. It means that I accept that it is not a primary color, or here it's written a secondary color, but same thing. So if we have a thesis statement, take the subject, the color of a red cloud, it follows that it is a secondary color. I accept just means, yes, it is a secondary color. You're accepting that thesis. If you say why, you're not accepting that the thesis is true, which means you are accepting that the color of a red cloud is not a secondary color. Okay. So if you now give a reason, So now we have a three-part syllogism. Again, keeping the same subject, so it's not written here because you don't need to repeat the subject every time if you're keeping the same subject and giving many reasons, a line of reasons. You don't have to say it explicitly. You can just remember it. It follows that it is a secondary color. So again, you see the process here. The previous predicate that was asserted was denied. So now we have to prove that that predicate is true. I'm sorry, the previous, okay, so here we haven't gone, I'm sorry, we haven't gone there yet. So here we're just keeping the same predicate, right? It follows that it is a secondary color because it is the color of a cloud. Now, if someone denied that, you could now take the reason, the color of a cloud, and move it into the predicate position of your next syllogism. It follows that it is the color of a cloud because it is the color of a particular instance of a cloud, a red cloud. So that's just the simple format for how you keep your debate moving when you're trying to give a line of reasons. You take one reason that was denied, move it to the place of the predicate, and give another reason. So what does it mean when you answer there's three possibilities of answers for this kind of reason, this kind of three-part syllogism? I accept. So that means you accept, when you accept a reason that's given, you're accepting that the reason is true of the subject, but you're also accepting that there's a pervasion. If it's the reason, it's necessarily the predicate. So now you've actually accepted that the thesis is true. So take the subject, the color of a red cloud. It follows that it's a secondary color. Why? It follows as a secondary color because it's the color of cloud. I accept. Good, you proved it to me. That means that you're now reversing your original position. You originally denied that thesis. You originally were saying the subject, the color of a red cloud, is not a secondary color. Now you're saying, okay, I accepted your reason, proved it to me. Yes, you're right. It is a secondary color. And that's when you've reversed your position, and the challenger will give you a little strike or ta. Now, if you say prove it, which also is worded as the reason's not true, so prove it. I'm, again, opting for a short, pithy language as possible. Prove it. The defender then does not accept that the color of a red cloud is the color of a cloud. So you've denied that the reason applies to the subject. So that means you accept that it is not the color of a cloud. Okay. Now, if you say
and maybe just maybe if I may interrupt for 1 second, I think what we didn't cover very explicitly yet, the whole objective of this kind of debating is to find inconsistency. So this is why, generally you try to avoid the tsa, which really means there is an inconsistency. But of course, at some point you're going to be forced to accept that you've made an inconsistency, and it's sort of like a game a little bit. But yeah, that's why there's this obsession with the consistencies and inconsistencies.
Good point. Thank you. And it's sort of like a game, but it's a game that's playing with your beliefs. So it's like a game that you can use to actually delve down into what your own mistaken views are. And since we all have countless mistaken views, there's a lot of fun to be had in this game, a lot to play with. And so no pervasion now. So no pervasion means several things here, right? When you give a response of no pervasion to this syllogism, what are the things that you are saying by those two words? You are actually accepting that the color of a red cloud is the color of a cloud. So you're accepting that the reason is true of the subject. Otherwise, you would have said the reason is not true, or prove it, right? You're accepting the reason is true of the subject. And at the same time, you're accepting that there's not a pervasion such that if something is the color of a cloud, it is necessarily a secondary color. That's what no pervasion like literally means. I'm not accepting that pervasion. But you are, so what are you accepting? You're accepting that if something is the color of a cloud, it is not necessarily a secondary color. So it's like a transitive property of the negation. We're just moving you did not accept with the word accept. So you don't accept that there is a pervasion. So you do accept that if something is the color of a cloud, it is not necessarily a secondary color, right? Just move the word not to a different part of the statement. Then another meaning of this is that you are accepting there exists something which is both the color of a cloud and that should say, I'm sorry, that should say not a secondary color. So that's just a typo. Please note that. So you're accepting that there exists something which is these two things. On the one hand, the color of a cloud, and on the other hand, not a secondary color. Right? In other words, not all colors of clouds are secondary colors. Okay. So that's a lot of talk, and I already have made the promise to not spend too much time giving sort of the background, but just let everyone get into it and see how your own minds will feel training and practicing and getting these phrases out of your mouths, getting your phrases into the air. So why don't we do a little bit together, just me, and then if we have like a volunteer that could come up, and then other people where you are just think, or you can say it out loud if you're happy to do that just where you are. But it might be difficult the way that the mics work if we had people all unmuting and trying to say it. But maybe one or two people want to come on stage, and then we'll just practice trying to give good reasons for a certain thesis. So just give a reason, and then we'll see whether it's a good reason or not and why. So let's just do that for a few minutes, and then we'll break out into our breakout groups. Okay, any volunteers want to come up and just practice giving reasons to prove things? First, I'll just ask, if the thesis is true or not, and then ask for a reason. You can raise your hand or just come straight up. And if no one does, then I'll maybe see if Marika will do it. Oh, good. We have a brave soul. Please come up, Lokesh. No, you went away. Okay, here we go. So you can unmute and open your camera. And of course, if someone else wants to join, we can have a couple people, but one is good. So I'm just going to using this hierarchy, again, I can put it on the screen share. And I'm using, just because I, put this terminology into our script, I'll just use this form, which has this terminology. I know the other texts use slightly different translations. That's okay. So let's just start with a simple statement. Take the subject, the Empire State Building. Now, is that something that people are familiar with? Are you familiar with it, Lokesh?
Yes.
Yes, good. Okay. Take the subject, the Empire. This is a building in New York City, a very tall building. Enough said about it. Take the subject, the Empire State Building. It follows that it is a shape.
I accept.
You accept. It follows it is a shape because
it looks like a pencil.
it looks like
a pencil.
Because it looks like a pencil? Cool. Okay, so that's a good reason. So you did use the word it, so that's A plus, right? You're actually talking about the Empire State Building now. So if you lost the subject, a way you might have said something similar would be because tall buildings are long like pencils. You would say something, put some other subject into there. So you just said because it looks like a pencil. So very good. So because it looks like a pencil. So let's see. Does that work? Well, it could, right? You could certainly debate whether there's a pervasion if all things which look like pencils are necessarily shapes. So, but if we just keep it to this hierarchy of, we have our existent things, we have permanent and impermanent or functioning things, we have form, consciousness, non-associated compositional factors.
Because it is high.
Because it is high. Very good. Okay, thank you. That's awesome, right? So this is how it may be a little simplistic, but that's what we need when we're just trying to train our minds in the format, right? We need to be able to just say, okay, look, I have this hierarchy. Where am I going to fit this subject into that hierarchy? So take the subject, the Empire State Building. It follows it is shaped because it is high. So now I can ask you, it follows that if something is high, it's necessarily a shape?
I accept.
Okay, good. So why is that a good reason? Because now, again, you can still debate, is the Empire State Building actually high or not? And that can be a debate. But for now, we'll just accept, okay, yes, we agree with you. I'm agreeing it is high. And so that's a good reason because high is one of the subcategories within shape. It's a division of shape. So anything which is high is necessarily a shape. And we'll go through the Venn diagrams next session and see how these different permutations come to be. But we have, if you're thinking about a sort of Venn diagram kind of setup here, you have a big circle of shape and a little circle of high shapes. Great, so let's try another one. So take the subject, the color, the color of shadow, right? Shadow color. It follows that it is form.
I accept.
It's form because
it is secondary color.
Because it is secondary color. So it follows that if something is a secondary color, it's necessarily form.
I accept.
Great. So secondary color, again, is a subdivision of form because it's within the division of form sources, form source, because it's a division of color, because it's a division of, because it's secondary color, or secondary color is the division, yeah. So we have this, these branching out of categories. And again, the branches are actually easier to see in the debate courtyard, which has the whole diagram, or in this area, so you can just see how it branches out, right? Form to outer form. So anything on the right side is going to be able to be a reason to prove anything on the left side. That's one way you can think of it when you have this chart. So if you're saying, the smell of incense, right? You're trying to prove that it is outer form, then you can prove it by saying it is outer form because it is an unnatural smell. Again, remembering that all of these are still open for debate, right? It's fine. But just in general, what constitutes a good reason? It has to be, I'm sorry, it doesn't have to be, but one way is that it's on a subcategory within a wider category. Now, another way would be to give a reason that is co-equal in terms of, if you're looking at a Venn diagram, that there are two circles that exactly cover each other. Everything which is one is necessarily the other, and everything which is, so saying A, B, everything which is A is necessarily B, and everything which is B is necessarily A. This is what we call equivalence. This is equivalence. So for instance, color and that which is suitable as a hue, those are again definiendum and definition. So those are co-equal, coextensive, or equivalent. So what's another reason you could give? So let me use the exact same question. Take the subject, the color of darkness, it follows that it is form because, and now giving something that's equivalent to form as a reason.
Oh, equivalent of form would be the definition by Thupten Jimpa, what is materiality, because it is
Capable of
material.
materiality, yes. Because it is capable of materiality. Perfect. So if something is capable of materiality, it is necessarily form. Another reason you could give is because it is matter. Matter and form are equivalent. So that's not a definition, but there are other things which are equivalent that aren't definitions. Okay. So
Ask you,
go ahead.
so you're using the word equivalent, whereas I hear the word like mutually inclusive in other texts or where I
Yeah,
read.
that's again just
So
trying to streamline the language a little bit. Yeah. It's just it's something that is going to need a bit of continued effort to develop terminology that's both conveys the meaning properly and is comfortable to say. So mutually inclusive is quite long. It's, for people who aren't familiar with logic or philosophy, it's sort of awkward jargon. I've heard other people just say MI. So they just abbreviate it. There's one school who's studied debate that I know of where they just say for mutually inclusive MI, for mutually exclusive ME, for, three, if you're talking about how many possibilities there are, 3 possibilities or 4 possibilities, they'll just say 3P, 4P, 3P, 4P, MI, ME. It's actually a pretty good system.
Yeah, and just to interject for those of you who are not so familiar, we'll get to those things because this is quite a bit of terminology that we actually haven't quite talked about, and I suspect that Lokesh is already has had some debate training, so this is why it makes sense.
Yes, and sorry to jump the gun, but it is good to clarify for the people who have some training and have seen the terminology used in other texts. And yeah, this afternoon or this next session is when we'll start going into those all those things we just talked about. Okay, so now we need to break up into pairs because we need to practice. So why don't we break up into pairs and we can continue using. So now we have a sample debate sheet with a script that has been a little bit revised so it has more clearly the challenger defender roles marked. And then it has the debates themselves, the logic debates, meaning, are slightly revised. Here we go, starting on page 12, the logic debates. So these are scripts for 2 logic debates, and then we just have questions that you can use to start off a debate. So I would say at this time, it's probably best to start with a little bit of the counting debate for just a couple minutes. Just go through, the first page or 2, and then try and move into a logic debate. And what I would suggest is use one of these as your prompt. And then you can start to think for yourself. Just remembering the points we brought up today, I have to keep in mind the subject, so use the word it in my reason. Okay, one point to keep in mind. Next point to keep in mind, my reason has to have a pervasion such that if it's the reason, it's necessarily the predicate. So I can say something that's on a lower category, subcategory within a wider one, or I can say something that covers the same range of objects, the entire range of phenomena, like the definition of something, right? Take the subject, the color of white light. That's one of the ones we have in actually another document we'll show after, but it follows that it's color because it's suitable as hue. Take the subject, the color of a rainbow. It follows that it's secondary colors because it's suitable as a secondary hue. So that's one way, or it follows that it's take the subject, the color of white light follows that it's colored because it's a primary color. So now you've gone to a category below. And again, these kinds of practices really get you used to the format, and you can start building your own reasoning into it and questioning. Okay, well, is it really that? Is it really that subcategory or not? Okay, so let's. Yeah.
Also, I would say suggest that if you're already somewhat familiar with debates, you can easily move to really using your own examples and so on. If not, feel free to just spend some time really mulling over the scripts and trying to understand what's being said in the script. So really go sentence by sentence and then check with each other, like, okay, what's said here, and does that make sense? How does it work? And then also if you have questions, you can either approach one of us, or you can just keep it, and we'll probably get back together after the breakout debate so that you can ask them then, because maybe other people will benefit from your question as well. So don't hesitate to just take your time with this, because it's quite a lot of getting yourself used to.
Yeah, and we're again trying to condense a training that, learning to debate takes time, of course. Getting familiar with just this basic format of how to posit a question, do a counting debate, you can learn in a few days. But we're still trying to kind of condense a few days of study down into like one day. So it's still, because we're trying to condense a lot into a little amount of time. But you're going to be able to start getting familiar with it even in a short amount of time. And think, like Marika said, think about it. Every question that's been raised so far has been extremely helpful and well thought out, and I'm sure your questions, please bring them. Yeah, I second that. And we have 20 minutes. Please find a partner, and once again, you're welcome to, if you're still a little bit unsure of kind of how to take it on yourself, you can join another pair and listen in, and please please accommodate someone who's wanting to do it that way if you are in a pair. All right, break. We'll be back in 20 minutes. Hello, Vitaly. Let's see if someone else comes. I don't want to. Let's see. I can invite someone else here. Shanti, if you want to come join Vitaly. Okay. Okay. People can find their partners, but I'd like to more just kind of listen
we
in.
can wait. You can go outside. So,
Yeah, I'll see if
so
someone else
we'll
comes.
see,
Yeah.
Ricotta.
Hello. Are you needing a partner? Are you looking for a partner? I'm not sure if Angshung is actually.
Yeah, hi.
Okay, you're both there.
Hello.
Okay, good.
Hi, Daniel. Just quickly checking in. Everything fine tech-wise and other
It seems
things?
like it. Yeah, the stream's going, and that seems to be it. I haven't received any questions on tech from anyone today yet.
Okay.
Are you running?
Um,
Do you have some technical issues people have brought to you? You need to work out.
I'm on one case with Betty Rogers at the moment. Had struggles yesterday for one session, not the other, so it's a bit strange, but I'm on it. And
Okay.
I'm not sure if you have seen it already. On Slack, Marike and I did a short summary of our experiences from this morning's debate sessions. So when you have time, maybe in half an hour or so, when things are done there, so you might want to have a read through.
Thank you.
So.
Yeah, good.
All right. See you later.
See you.
It's because it is the color of white.
Why?
Okay, I'll say it again. Take the subject, a white hearse. It follows that it is white because it is white color.
The reason is not established.
Okay. Take the subject, a white hearse. It follows that it is the color of white because it is not red hearse.
I accept.
Take the subject, white hearse. It follows that it is the color white.
I'll just accept.
Do you accept?
Yeah, I'll accept.
Okay, so then what we have? Take the subject, white hearse. It follows that it is white.
It is the color white.
It is the color white, yes. I'll say again, take the subject, a white hearse. Oh, are you there? Okay. Take the subject, a white hearse. It follows that it is the color white.
Why? I mean, I know the answer, but I don't know how to do it in the debate form.
Okay. Okay, I'll ask you this one. Take the subject, a white hearse. It follows that it is not the color white because
horse is not a color.
Okay. Then take the subject, a white hearse. It follows that it is the color white because white is a color.
I accept.
You accept. So we have take the subject, a white hearse. It follows that it is the color white.
I accept.
Okay. So then what else? Yeah, we are done, I think.
Okay.
Damchula, are you in Kathmandu? Damchula. Damchula, can you hear us?
I am in Pokhara.
Pokhara, Ale.
Pokhara.
Maybe you are not far from each other.
Oh, who is in Pokhara?
Tuktena is in Kathmandu. I don't know how far it is from Pokhara.
Ah, Tukten Choingla, Tsuma Tukten Choingla.
Hello.
Oh, hello. Sorry, I'm just with the camera off because it's very cold and I'm. Let me just.
These are the divisions of shape.
I accept.
Can you posit the definition of a long shape?
I accept.
What is it?
You have to say, what is it?
Yeah, what is it?
That which is suitable as a long shape.
Take the subject, that which is suitable as a long shape, it follows that it's the definition of long shape.
I accept. Do you want to do it for short shape and high shape also, or should we go to the definition of color?
We'll go to the definition of color.
Okay. So
it follows that you can posit the definition of color.
I accept.
Posit it.
That which is suitable as a hue.
Take the subject, that which is suitable as a hue, it follows that it's the definition of color.
I accept.
Can you posit the divisions of color?
I accept.
Posit them.
Take the subject, primary colors and secondary colors. So when they say take the subject, you should say the divisions of color. Do we say that, or do we say take the subject, primary color and secondary color?
Yeah, because I've already asked you a question, right? Like, can you posit the divisions of colors? So you have to come straight to the point, like the divisions of color. You are just mentioning it. Take the subject, primary colors and secondary colors. So you are giving the answer.
So I need not say divisions of color are primary color and secondary color, or it follows that the division, take the subject, the divisions of color, it follows that it is, that they are primary color and secondary color. Do we say it like that? Or do we just say take the subject, primary color and secondary color?
Yeah, this is the thing. Like, we directly give the answer, primary colors and secondary colors, as it is mentioned here.
Okay. So take the subject, primary colors and secondary colors.
Yeah. Take the subject, primary colors and secondary colors. It follows they are the divisions of colors.
I accept.
Can you posit the definition of primary color?
Yes.
What is it?
That which is suitable as a primary hue.
That which is suitable as primary hue, it follows that it's the definition of primary color.
I accept.
But here I didn't really get it. Like, when you say, when you are taking the subject, that which is suitable as a primary color, I mean,
primary hue.
Yeah, primary hue. I don't see a proper definition of it. It just, directly saying it is suitable, which is suitable as a primary hue. So, yeah.
So it is the same as a form, right? That which is suitable as a form and not part of a mental continuum.
Yeah.
The external form, the definition of an external form is that which is suitable as a form and is not part of the mental continuum. Isn't that what it says?
Yeah.
So isn't this similar?
Yeah, makes sense.
Because I've also tried to figure out suitable. So what I am putting into it is that which all comes together to form the primary hue, or that which makes it, when things come together, to form the external form.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yes, yes.
Is that right? I don't know. Means that's the way I'm seeing the word suitable.
Yeah, so yes, then it
Because
is.
at the end of the day, it's a designation, and a designation is given to something when it is suitable to be designated as that. So a table is designated as a table when everything comes together.
Together. Yeah.
Right? So that which is suitable as a table, a definition of a table is defined as a table. Means there has to be the top portion and the legs and everything.
Yes, yes, as a whole, something as a whole.
Yes, that's the way I see it.
Yeah, which makes it one. Right.
Yeah?
Yes. So we'll.
Shall we?
Yeah, continue.
Yeah, take the subject. Yeah.
Take the subject that which is suitable as a primary hue. It follows that it is.
Is incorrect, and the challenger would lead the debate to a point where the defender would have to say, would accept the opposite statement of the one given here, which would then make the defender to ask why, and then the challenger would say, "So, you contradicted yourself." Which is one of the points why debate is done in the first place, right? To point out those misconceptions that lead to contradictions eventually. Don, you had this example in his slides. Where are the slides? Because in the slides, for example, on the last slide, it says literally, take the subject, the color of a red cloud. It follows it is a primary color. And
it is this I'm a bit confused because red cloud should be a secondary color because cloud is in the secondary cloud is in the division of secondary colors. But red, I think, is in the division of primary colors.
Oh, yes, you're right.
So there I feel like cloud overrules sort of the color red, or the primary nature of the color red, and makes it into a secondary color. I mean, the red cloud.
Yes, good point.
So this is, at least it appears to me like this.
Sorry.
So I'm going to be open here. That's an answer I cannot give.
Okay.
Sorry.
Home office, right?
Oh dear me.
That's a
It's
very
like,
good.
it's like being in a courtyard, actually.
Well, we are, right? So I cannot say whether the color cloud, the secondary color cloud overrules the primary color.
Right.
I think both works here, and that's not because of a compromise, but because sometimes you have those conditions, like you have a brown dog, which is a dog and which is an instance that has, or which is an object that has the color brown. So you can have both something that is brown and something that is a dog. And I guess a red cloud is an instance of something that has a primary color and a secondary color. That would be my take, my educated guess on the issue, but I think that's a very good question to ask in a couple of minutes.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I try to get my head around it. But just as a remark, by the way, thank you very much for creating this monastery and all this playground here for us. It's really super cool. I find. Once I got into it, I was roaming around yesterday a little bit, and it's so nice. It's so awesome. It gives a totally different experience.
Thank you very much. I think that's makes it more fun to use it, and if it's more fun, then you learn better.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right, then I tried. Where did my debate partner go?
Donio is here.
There.
Severin is here.
Yes, we only have a couple minutes, so if you want to just continue what you're doing, and I hope you don't mind me listening in, but it's very nice to hear. But yeah, I'll call people back in just 2 minutes.
Okay. Severina, should we give it another try?
Yeah, so did we, so is it primary or secondary? It doesn't matter, right?
We're not quite in
It's just a flow.
But we just go over the arguments one more time.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to adjust because my screen is gone a bit funny, so.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello, Donio.
Hey, yes, you
Couple
called.
of questions. We have a couple of questions.
Sure, and I think I'm gonna call people back in a couple minutes, so this is a good time to check. Yeah, unless you.
Yes.
Go
For
ahead.
example, you have the more question on colors on the page. I don't know. You say that do all inanimate physical objects fit some? The question in another format. It follows that if something is inanimate physical object, it's necessary one of the 5 types of external form. And you say if accepted, you continue. But why would you accept? Why would you continue if you already accepted the?
Everyone, sorry for interrupting your debates that roughly. The 20 minutes are about to end, so please try to wrap it up quickly, and then let's meet inside the main building again to reflect on what we did and clear up some questions that might have arisen.
So yeah,
Thank you very much.
we'll address. Thank you, Stefan. He's not here, of course, but he was giving an announcement. So we'll just address that question in the main building. Okay.
Okay, and the second one, if we say that if there's no pervasion, the person says that there's no pervasion.
Can you just hold it and you just ask it on the stage for everyone to hear? That would make sense.
But I'm not sure how to wrap this question actually. So
okay.
I'm just I can ask it on the stage.
Yeah, do it,
but
because I think everyone's
if there's no if person say there's no pervasion, but they actually have pervasion,
yeah.
What should the person say?
That's a tricky one. Yeah. So we can talk about that a little bit. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll just give one last call for everyone else to make sure everyone comes in. Just bear with us. Okay, so this is just the final call for everyone to come back into the temple, and it's wonderful to hear everyone really engaging and really getting your brain cells working, your neurons firing. Okay, let's and bring your questions. So I'm just going to start because people are still wandering in, but I just want to say how wonderful it is to see everyone starting to get the hang of it. Some people who have experience with debate already are really just giving it their all and going into debates. And those who are brand new, it sounds like you're really, starting to take it on as your own style of reasoning and communication. So that's the key, right? Make it something that you can actually use to communicate with each other. And good questions are coming up. And so you can see how such a simplistic, in some ways, such a simplistic hierarchical structure of these different types of objects of senses can still produce so many questions. Can you imagine? I mean, if you look at the worksheets that I've put together so far, they don't really go beyond colors at all. I mean, there's a couple questions that were of a little different nature, but most of the debates are just sticking with colors, and how many can you come up with? I mean, countless, really. So it's quite funny, huh? That's because the human mind, right? Our minds can keep on working no matter how simple a topic may seem. So
yeah, and I think actually also I remember I realized when I started doing this is that I thought I understood what a color is or what a form is or all these normal things, but then when you start thinking about it, you realize that actually there's quite a bit. It's actually quite unclear what I don't actually know what I mean with it. So that's pretty nice.
And that that fact or that experience that many of us will ring true for many of us, maybe does give a bit of that gives some credence, or that makes sense with regard to Andrew's earlier comment about certain positions on how the definitions are really only accurately sort of perfectly seen by a completely awakened being, because as the state we're in, we have a lot of wrong ideas about things or confusion about things, and so that does kind of make sense in that way. So we have questions coming, and we have already gone through almost the whole session, so let's just spend the rest of the time taking questions. So I already got a couple out on the debate courtyard, and Vitaly, could you repeat them, or would you like me to just try and address them? Yeah, come on up. Thank you.
I hope you hear me. The questions, there are a couple of questions. The first one is regarding the sample debate, and there's a statement that in the Lambda debate format that it follows that if something is an animate physical object, it necessarily is one of the 5 types of external form. Then there is mark in parentheses if accepted, and then the debates continue. But if we already accepted, why would we actually debate about the subject? It's not quite clear for me.
So this would be a case where the challenger and the defender have a different take on things. Or just put it simply, if you are the challenger, your role is to always try and find fault in the defender's answers and theses. So you posit a question to start the debate off, but based on what the defender answers, then you have to choose your subjects and try and find something that would disprove what he or she accepted. So it follows that if something is an inanimate object, it is necessarily one of the 5 types of external form. Sure, why not, right? It's the whole division of external matter, everything in the universe that's not sort of part of a living being. It's all external form. Yeah, I accept. Sure. So now you think, okay, well, what about these things? Well, take the subject, a car, take the subject, an atom, take the subject, sunlight. Are these things one of the 5 categories of external form. Do they fit? And which one? How? Why? So you don't, the questioner doesn't have to agree just because they're posing that question.
Yeah, and I think it's actually one thing that's really helpful about debate. I mean, here I'm also referring back to the video about the effects of debate on our way of thinking, on our minds, is that it trains you in really being very critical. If, you know, is that, can I find an exception? Can I find a counterexample of what this person is saying? So it's kind of the opposite of how our mind normally works, which is you.
Okay,
You've
but
gone
if I
muted there,
accept,
America. Something. Okay.
but if I accept, so this statement, um, do I say some why, or how do I start this debate if they are already statement that I accept with? So if accepted, take the subject. So we were saying that to start debate, we should say why. So which means that I'm not accepting.
Okay,
actually.
no, so sorry, I don't know if that maybe somehow got miscommunicated. So to start a debate, you don't have to say why. No, so we often start like this. We go through a counting debate, 10 minutes, whatever, however much time, establish some basic facts, the ground facts. Now you make a statement of pervasion. The answerer, the defender, they can accept it or deny it. Either way, you want to find a way to find some exception or counter example that, well, if they accept it, you find the counter example. If they deny it, you make them posit the counter example. That makes it so there is no pervasion. So if someone said why there, then as the questioner, what you would say is posit an example. That's on the worksheet, which we didn't go over yet. The one that we had been going over, but we didn't get to it. And it's actually just the next page where it starts to say what to do, how to actually keep the debate moving. So when someone says why, what to say. When they accept, what to say. So if they accept it, then you can posit a counterexample. So that's why it has. Okay, so they say accept. Now you say take the subject, an atom. It follows that it's one of the 5 categories of external form. That was what they had already accepted, right? That pervasion. It follows it is because it is an inanimate physical object. So it can take. There's no exact way a debate has to go. The defender can accept, deny, say no pervasion, say a reason's not true, and okay, is that clear?
But maybe it's like we can continue with this topic if the person say no pervasion and we already agreed on some system before in counting debate, but this no pervasion can conflict with this debate. Should I ask for example or like say that this is in conflict with the system?
Sure, that's fine to do as well. You ask for an example, right? And you got to have a little bit of patience with each other, right? The defender is it's like a rule, but a loose rule that the defender does try their best to hold to what's in the textbook. Okay, sure. Sometimes they don't understand it that well. Sometimes they really just want to try something new and leave it behind. Different people are different. Some people are better at keeping to the script than others. So you just have patience with them, right? But, yes, in general, in the Tibetan monasteries, you can use the text and cite that, quote that as a reason. But here, I don't really think that's that appropriate for a wider audience beyond that. At the same time, to be fair, and you don't have to go into it in much detail, but people might say, oh, this textual authority is totally out of place in a modern academic context. But that's actually just, as far as I can see, not actually the case. it seems like it, but in reality, as Marika just said, well, I think I know what color is because I've read it in the textbook and I know how to repeat the definition, or that, yes, the colors are the things that are on the visible spectrum of light and the electromagnetic spectrum from, 400 to 700 nanometers. Good, I know what color is. Well, that's just citing scriptural authority, isn't it? You haven't actually understood what that means necessarily. Not that you've necessarily not understood it. So, in one sense, that is okay, but here we're trying to focus more on reasons, on using the reasons and asking the defender to give their reason for why they don't accept a pervasion if they don't accept it.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe actually just to attach on there's another question by Archana, which is, why is white considered a primary color in this system, whereas in many systems actually, well, we are used to white not being a primary color. So do you have any idea of why that's the case?
Myself, so again, we want to leave a lot of these questions open so you guys can debate them and come to your own understanding. But if sure, I can give my perspective. Don't take it as like the authority. So, well, in general, the primary colors and the secondary colors are divided on the basis of simply that secondary colors are what's created, are what are a result of mixing one or more or two or more primary colors. So you mix two or more primary colors and you get something which is a secondary color. So that I think that basically holds true across all forms of color theory as far as I'm aware. I mean, there's subtractive and additive color mixing, and that depends on whether you're using pigments or light and such, but here that's just right. White is what you get when, I mean, you don't mix any other colors together to get white, right? It's if you mix white with another color, you'll get a third color. So that's the only.
This before, and I'm getting a still picture again, so maybe he's interrupted again. I think it was similar yesterday.
That's funny. This is very good time for the connection to go down right at the end of class. It's like bad karma, but the best of bad karma. Okay. So, what did you catch what I was saying about the white color? No, I'm sorry. Oh dear, nothing. Okay, so we'll just take what I said though is that if people still have questions and you want to answer them, I'm happy to stay here. And those of you who need to leave at the hard end of the course timing, so the 8 a.m. Eastern or whatever time zone you're in, please leave. And if you still have a question, please, if you have the time, stay. And I will be happy to try and answer it. So this question about white being a primary color, quite simply, primary colors, secondary colors are distinguished because secondary colors are what arise from the mixing of two or more primary colors. And so is white something that comes from mixing two or more primary colors? No. So white is a base and you mix that with other primary colors to get secondary colors. That's as simple, that's the only way I know of to think of it.
And I think there's one more question, which who writes, why is Y considered a non-acceptance and for it later when, even though honestly not really knowing the reason, right? So I'm just asking you, like, why don't understand?
This is a good question. And the answer is really, well, what's the point of getting a tzah? It's not to penalize you, it's to wake you up. It's to say you didn't, know something and now you're changing your position. So, yeah, okay, maybe you weren't holding hard to a denial of that thesis, but you didn't know whether it was true or not. And so someone's now giving you a reason that convinces you. You change you change from a denial to an acceptance of a thesis. So your ta is not a penalty, it's a gift. Now your ignorance is gone about that subject, about that issue. It's a gift. And that's actually one of the ways we can really think of it, that having our beliefs challenged is a kindness, and it really is in the biggest way. So of course you have to work with your ego's reactions, and that's also a valuable practice.
Yeah, and there's also a learned from my conversations with the monks between, and a major tsa. So if you take a fundamental position, then that's eventually worse than if you just ask for a reason. You don't just honestly more of a minor kind of tsa. So that's
Okay, so we've come to 8 a.m. and if there are other questions, you're welcome to stay back. Just raise your hand now so I know that you will want to ask a question. And then everyone else may leave, and we'll see you in 90 minutes. And if there are no questions, then we'll just... Okay, so we have questions. So anyone who wants to hear that or to ask it, come on up. And then everyone else who needs to leave, we'll see you later on. Thank you all for coming. Okay, so we can just go with our questions. We want to unmute there, Marco. I think you're still muted. Marco, I think you're muted. Can you... Okay. No? Is it my computer? It might be... I might have to refresh my screen here. 1 second.
Mark. Now he's unmuted again.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Muted again. On my end. Now he's gone.
Okay, maybe Yeshe Gyalpo? Yeshe Gyalpo, the king of wisdom.
So my question is, when you're starting as the challenger, is it better to have a simple subject or a compound subject? Like the color of a white cloud at dusk is a fairly complex subject that you can go a lot of different ways, or do you just want to start simple and then later expand it? Or is that just a strategy thing?
Yeah, either way, it's kind of a strategy thing. I tried to use subjects in these example debates that allow you to go many different ways with them, right? So you have what's going on here. You have, well, the color red's in there, but then you also have the color of cloud. And then you also have a time thing going on there, which may or may not be relevant, but at dusk is, adds an element that you're welcome to open up and kind of, you can bring the debate into different places with each of those parts of that subject, like you were saying. Other times you can actually take a compound subject by using the compound particle, the adjunctive and you actually have, take the subject, the color of a cloud and the color red. It follows they are primary color or secondary color. You could actually take multiple things in your subject. That's another option. To start, it's good to keep it simple.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, so Marco seems to be back. Yeah.
At last, I'm unmuted. Okay. I think I just got half of the question and answer what the gentleman just asked because I refreshed my own screen. I think I had a very similar question when it came to the logical debate. So first it was the color of a red cloud at dusk, it follows, it's a secondary color. First of all, I was thinking, okay, red is a primary color, but then cloud is a secondary color, and it seems to overrule the redness of red, or the primary nature of red. Hence, it becomes a red color becomes a secondary color. Is this correct?
Well, why would it? Why would one overrule the other? I mean, that's now you have to come up with some reason for that.
This would be my question, but my explanation or my inference just from reading the script is that the cloud is then the subject. The color of the red cloud is then the subject, and it's not about red anymore, but rather the color of the red cloud, which coincidentally is red.
So then is it coincidentally suitable as a red hue?
This makes sense. And then it goes into the secondary category.
Right. So we should debate that. Maybe we can see. Do we have? Well, I'm trying to think if we have time to do it next session.
I beg your pardon. No, I didn't.
Can you hear me? Am I somehow losing my connection again? No. Okay, that should be good. I'm here. Okay.
See a video stream without.
Yes, but it's I can hear you, but I don't know. It's always breaking at my screen, so I'm hearing small bits and pieces.
Well, why don't we? I'll just write a note in the chat box.
Donya, I was able to hear your stream without interruption.
I think we're having some technical issues, huh? Maybe.
Be able to hear me?
I'm able to hear you, Stefan. Yes. Okay. You can hear me now. Well, we can take that question in the next session. That's fine. Are there any other questions? There's some people hanging out still, but I don't see any hands. So, okay. All right. Well, I'm going to then take off as well. Okay. Oh, you're muted, Stefan. Oh, Andrew. Okay, Andrew, you can come up. No. People are... Here we go. And Marco is back.
Yeah, perhaps... Okay, I apologize that I have no idea how to make this question any simpler than I'm going to phrase it. It's been mind-boggling for years now, but it's quite relevant to what was asked earlier about criteria of changing, how to say, like a hue has a property in one semantic context, but then the same hue, if it is paired with an object or something, then the quality of the hue transition